Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. The polished brush hovered in the air for a moment, but what caught me off guard wasn't the soft shine of color on my nails, it was him. My husband had been leaning casually against the doorway, but when our eyes met, something shifted. It was the kind of gaze that lingers too long, the kind that makes the air suddenly feel heavier, warmer. His smile was small, almost secretive, yet it carried more weight than words. The room itself was quiet, filled with the faint hum of the hair dryer and the comforting scent of fresh polish. It was an ordinary evening, too ordinary, perhaps. The kind where nothing is expected to happen, and that's why the unexpected feels so electrifying. I could hear the soft creak of the floor as he stepped closer, each movement deliberate but unhurried. My heart matched the rhythm of those steps, quickening with each one. I tried to focus on the glossy shade drying on my fingertips, but the truth was, my attention had already shifted. His presence drew me in like gravity, familiar, yet thrilling. There was no rush in the way he reached for my hands, no need for words as his fingers brushed mine. It was the kind of touch that wasn't dramatic but undeniable, carrying a promise I could feel under my skin. The air between us thickened, tinged with something more than routine affection. There was tenderness in his grip, but also a spark of urgency that made me pause, polished brush still suspended. My breath caught. Suddenly, the small distance that had existed between us dissolved, and I was no longer just a woman waiting for her nails to dry. I was a wife reminded of every reason she had fallen in love with him in the first place. That's the beauty of moments like these. They don't announce themselves. They arrive in the middle of life's simplest tasks, turning the ordinary into something unforgettable. One second I was watching a thin coat of polish glisten under the light, and the next, I was swept into the intensity of his closeness, my body betraying the calm I was trying to hold. As his hand lingered, the brush slipped from my fingers, a small smear of color tracing across my wrist. That tiny imperfection became the symbol of something much bigger, the sign that everything between us was about to shift from stillness into motion. And in that rising tension, in the undeniable pull of him against me, I knew the night was only just beginning. His hand was still wrapped around mine, and for a moment neither of us spoke. The silence didn't feel empty, it pulsed with meaning, thick with something unspoken. I tried to laugh it off, lifting my other hand awkwardly, polished brush dangling like an excuse. "You'll mess them up," I whispered, half teasing, half nervous. His smile deepened. "Maybe that's the point." The words lingered, playful yet heavy, and I felt my breath catch in my throat. He stepped closer, close enough that I could see the flecks of gold in his eyes under the soft light. The faint smell of his cologne, warm, familiar, wrapped around me, and suddenly the room felt smaller. I tried to shift away, to focus on the tiny bottle of polish, but he followed, gently sliding the brush from my fingers. His thumb grazed the inside of my wrist, smearing a faint streak of color against my skin. That simple touch sent a rush of heat through me, unexpected yet undeniable. "Remember our first apartment?" he murmured, voice low but steady. "You painted your nails in the kitchen because we didn't even have a table." I laughed softly, caught between memory and the present. "And you spilled half the bottle on the counter." His gaze softened at the reminder, his hands still circling mine. "I did. And you were furious. But you didn't let go of me then, either." The words hit deeper than I expected, like a secret thread pulling us back to who we used to be. I hadn't realized how much I missed that version of us, the one that couldn't resist touching, couldn't resist smiling in the middle of an argument. I tried to pull away gently, but he caught my hand again, firmer this time. His eyes searched mine, and for a second I wondered if he was fighting the same battle I was. The sensible part of me whispered, "Stop. The polish isn't dry. This is silly." But the part of me that remembered every stolen glance, every brush of his hand across my back, every night we stayed awake talking until dawn, that part begged me to stay right where I was. And then, without warning, he leaned in, not rushing, not demanding, just close enough for his forehead to rest lightly against mine. My pulse raced, the warmth of his breath brushing against my cheek. It was the smallest gesture, but it unraveled me. I closed my eyes, fighting not to smile too widely. Something inside me whispered, "This is only the beginning." I kept telling myself it was nothing. Just a brush of his hand, just a look that lingered too long. But when he held my gaze, really held it, the air shifted again. There was no denying it, something inside both of us wanted more than this playful closeness. My heart beat faster, as if it knew I was standing at the edge of something dangerous. He didn't say anything at first, he didn't need to. His eyes said enough, questioning, daring, almost pleading. And I should have looked away, should have pulled my hands free. But instead, I let them stay caught in his, warm and unyielding. "You know we can't," I started, but my voice faltered. He leaned closer, just enough for me to feel the warmth of his breath at the edge of my cheek. "Can't what?" he asked softly, his tone laced with something more than curiosity. The way he said it made me shiver. The rational part of me screamed for space, for distance, for something to break the tension. But then his thumb traced absent circles on the inside of my palm, and the thought unraveled. That small, tender motion was more intimate than any kiss. I drew a shaky breath, my eyes darting to the streak of polish now smudged across my skin. A mess, yes, but a beautiful one. It felt like a mirror of us, imperfect, yet magnetic. "You're making this harder," I whispered, my voice lower now, as though the words themselves were too fragile to carry. His lips curved faintly, almost sad. "Maybe it's supposed to be." The silence that followed was heavier than before. It wrapped around us, pulling us closer, binding us in a conflict neither of us could ignore. My body leaned toward him before I could stop it, my willpower slipping inch by inch. He noticed, of course he did, and instead of moving back, he stayed perfectly still, letting me close the distance if I dared. The sound of the clock ticking on the wall filled the room, reminding me of time, of reality, of what crossing this invisible line might mean. But the truth was, all I could think about was how close he was, how badly I wanted the space between us to disappear. And then it happened, his forehead touched mine again, firmer this time, his breath mingling with mine in the quiet. My hand lifted as though with a mind of its own, resting against his chest, feeling the steady thrum of his heartbeat under my palm. One more inch, just one, and we would be past the point of no return. But the moment froze there, suspended. Neither of us moved. Not yet. The clock ticked again, steady and relentless, but inside me everything was unsteady. My pulse raced, uneven, like it was chasing something it couldn't quite reach. His forehead pressed against mine, and for a long moment neither of us dared to move. We were statues caught in a storm of feeling, every breath, every heartbeat echoing in the silence. When I finally opened my eyes, I found his already on me. Too close, too deep. It was the kind of gaze that stripped away every excuse I had left. I tried to laugh softly, to ease the tension. "This is crazy," I murmured, the words catching in my throat. He smiled faintly, but there was no humor in it. "Yeah. Crazy." His voice was low, roughened by something he wasn't saying. I felt the urge to step back, to break whatever spell had tangled us here. But then his hand lifted slowly, carefully, as though testing if he was allowed. His fingers brushed a loose strand of hair from my cheek, trailing just enough to make my skin hum. My breath hitched, betraying me. "Don't," I whispered, though it didn't sound convincing, even to me. "Don't what?" he asked, his tone soft but weighted. His hand didn't fall away. Instead, it lingered, his fingertips grazing the line of my jaw, warm and gentle. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was charged, alive. Every small movement amplified, the shift of his thumb against my skin, the sound of our breathing mingling, the uneven rhythm of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. I wanted to look away, to steady myself, but I couldn't. His pull was magnetic. I laughed again, nervous this time, the sound shaky. We shouldn't," My words trailed off because finishing them meant breaking the truth wide open, and I wasn't sure I could handle what would spill out. He leaned in closer, not enough to take, but enough to tempt. His lips hovered near, the faintest brush of air separating us. My chest tightened. Every part of me screamed to close that inch, to surrender to the inevitability of it. His hands slid down, fingers wrapping around mine once more. The touch was firm, grounding, yet it ignited me even more. I could feel his heartbeat now through that grip, steady, strong, but racing just like mine. The moment stretched, fragile and trembling, balanced on the edge of what could not be undone. My eyes fluttered shut, anticipation burning in my veins. And then, stillness. No kiss. Just the unbearable closeness of almost. The air was so charged it felt like even the walls were holding their breath. His forehead still touched mine, our hands still linked, our lips trembling on the edge of crossing that last impossible space. And then, the sound of footsteps in the hallway. We froze, both our heads turning toward the door. My chest tightened. For one wild second I thought it was nothing, just the house shifting, but then came the unmistakable creak of floorboards. "Are you two in here?" It was my sister's voice. She had a key, had stopped by countless times before without warning. But tonight, her timing was merciless. I stumbled back, snatching my hand from his. My heart was racing, but now for a different reason. He straightened quickly, running a hand over his hair, masking the storm we'd been caught in just seconds before. The knock came next, light but too close. Yeah, I called, my voice pitched higher than usual. "Just finishing up." The silence outside stretched before the sound of her retreating footsteps filled the air. Relief came in a rush, but it didn't erase the tremble still alive in me. If anything, it made it worse. Because in that pause, I realized what almost happened wasn't just impulse. It wasn't just about tonight. It was something deeper, something that terrified me. I turned to him, still breathless. "We can't do this." If anyone, his jaw tightened. "I know." But even as he said it, his eyes betrayed him, full of fire and longing. "I know," he repeated, softer this time, as though trying to convince himself. We stood there, torn between guilt and hunger, between loyalty and the raw pull neither of us could kill. My body leaned toward him again without permission, as if I had no choice. "You don't understand," I whispered. "If she finds out, it changes everything." He stepped forward, closing the distance I tried to hold. His hand found mine again, stubborn, desperate. "Maybe everything already has." The words cut straight through me. Because deep down, I knew he was right. Something had shifted the moment his eyes met mine, and there was no going back. The room felt smaller now, suffocating with the weight of what we weren't supposed to want. My pulse hammered, my breath shallow, and still, I couldn't look away. I thought of the smeared polish, the careless brush of color across my skin. A mess, a mistake, but beautiful. Just like this. I tried to resist, one last flicker of strength. "We shouldn't," but his lips hovered over mine, no longer trembling with hesitation. His hand cupped my cheek, his thumb brushing along my skin like a promise. And then all at once, the fight inside me broke. The fear, the doubt, the guilt, they scattered. What was left was only the fire, only the hunger. I closed the last inch. The moment our lips met, it was like the world fell away. Every barrier we had built, every whispered, "we shouldn't," collapsed under the weight of what we had been holding back. His kiss was not rushed, not reckless, it was deliberate, slow, as if savoring the release we had both been aching for. My hands clutched at him, needing the solidness of his chest, the anchor of his presence. His arms wrapped around me with the kind of certainty that said this wasn't just desire, it was something deeper, something we had both been afraid to name. The silence of the room was no longer heavy with restraint. Now it vibrated with something raw, alive, unstoppable. Our breaths tangled, uneven and urgent, filling the air with proof of what we had unleashed. But then, as his forehead pressed against mine again, softer this time, he whispered words that caught me off guard. "I can't pretend anymore." I froze, my pulse stumbling. His voice trembled, not with hesitation but with truth. "This, what I feel for you, it's not a game. It's not just tonight. It's more than I've let myself admit." My chest tightened, the weight of his confession pressing down harder than any kiss. Because I felt it too. The danger, the fire, the forbidden thrill, beneath it all was something terrifyingly real. I pulled back just enough to see his eyes. They were unguarded, stripped bare of the careful walls he usually carried. And in them, I saw my own reflection, desire, yes, but also fear, longing, and something dangerously close to love. "This could ruin everything," I whispered, my voice shaking. "If we keep going, we can't take it back." He didn't flinch. His hands slid down to intertwine with mine again, his grip steady, unyielding. "Then maybe we don't go back." The words hit like a spark to dry wood. For a heartbeat, I searched for reason, for escape. But there was none. There was only him. Only us. Only this pull that no amount of denial could kill. So when his lips found mine again, it was different, deeper, heavier, laced with all the truth we had been hiding. The release was overwhelming, a rush of everything we had bottled up spilling out at once. And yet, beneath the passion, a new fear whispered, if this wasn't just desire anymore, then the choice we faced would be greater than either of us was ready for. The room was quiet again, but no longer with the silence of hesitation. Now it was the silence of something fulfilled, of breath slowing after being stolen away, of hearts finally finding a rhythm together. I stayed close, my head resting against his chest, listening to the steady beat that had driven me crazy all night. His hand traced slow circles on my back, grounding me, reminding me that this wasn't a dream. It had happened. We had crossed the line we'd danced around for so long. For a moment, fear crept back in. What did this mean? What would happen if someone found out? The world outside this room still existed, messy, complicated, unforgiving. But in his arms, the fear softened. Because the truth was, it hadn't just been heat or impulse. It had been real, undeniable. "I don't regret it," he said quietly, as though reading my thoughts. I lifted my head to look at him. His eyes were raw, stripped of their usual confidence, and that vulnerability shook me more than anything. "Me neither," I admitted, the words trembling but true. We both laughed then, a soft, nervous sound, but it eased the weight pressing on us. It felt good to smile, to know that even in the chaos of what we'd done, there was something beautiful waiting in the middle of it. I touched the streak of nail polish still smudged across my skin, the tiny imperfection that had started it all. "Guess we'll never get that cleaned off," I teased. He caught my hand, bringing it to his lips with a gentle kiss. "Maybe we don't need to." That simple gesture, so small, so tender, cut deeper than all the tension that had come before. It wasn't just desire now. It was intimacy. It was connection. It was the kind of moment that would linger long after the polish faded, long after tonight ended. We stayed like that, holding each other in the golden glow of the room, breathing the same air, our laughter fading into something softer. A warmth settled in me, not just the fire of passion, but the quiet certainty that this memory would last. Whatever came tomorrow, whatever choices we would face, tonight had been worth it. Every second. Every touch. Every stolen breath. And as his hand tightened around mine, I knew one thing for certain, this wasn't an ending at all. It was the beginning of something we couldn't yet name.